Hello, I'm Esther. I'm a music composer and producer, and I talk about my experiences with BPD, which is borderline personality disorder. In this video, I'm going to talk about what BPD is, how it's experienced, diagnosed, and treated, as well as why it can be so unbelievably confusing living with it. Hopefully this will be helpful to anyone who's struggling to come to terms with a diagnosis for themselves or a loved one. Or maybe you're like myself and have been living with it for a very long time, but find it comforting to know that there are others who understand the difficulties we face. So, what is BPD?
So the DSM describes BPD as a set of symptoms that show a pervasive instability in interpersonal relationships, self-image, and emotions. So how do you get BPD in the first place? BPD is commonly associated with childhood trauma and can cross over with complex post-traumatic stress disorder. However, there are lots of people with BPD who are not aware of any childhood trauma or have not experienced childhood trauma who can feel BPD just as intensely as those who have. BPD is also thought to have a genetic link. This means that the genes that you inherit from your parents can make you more likely to develop BPD. Saying this, there's no really strong evidence-based link between genetics and BPD. And there are a lot of people that suffer from BPD who have no genetic links to it whatsoever. What do we learn from this? Well, we learn that there are a great deal of things that can supposedly cause BPD, but also might not. We think there's a possible genetic link, but we're also not sure about that either. And then there are loads of people who have it where we literally have no idea as to where it has come from. Welcome to the confusion of receiving a BPD diagnosis. When it comes to the symptoms and experiences of BPD, we run into yet another mind-boggling world of confusion and potential problems, and not a great deal of solutions to these problems. So the DSM provides a list of symptoms and the severity of these symptoms to kind of warrant a BPD diagnosis.
These are as follows: chronic feelings of emptiness, emotional instability in reaction to day-to-day events, for example, intense episodic sadness, irritability, or anxiety, frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment, identity disturbance with markedly or persistently unstable self-image or sense of self, impulsive behaviour in at least two areas that are potentially self-damaging, for example, spending, sex, substance abuse, reckless driving, and binge eating, inappropriate, intense anger or difficulty controlling anger, for example, frequent displays of temper, constant anger, and recurrent physical fights. Patterns of unstable and intense interpersonal relationship characterized by extremes between idealization and devaluation. This is also known as splitting. Recurrent suicidal behavior, gestures or threats, or self-harming behavior. Transient stress-related paranoid ideation or severe dissociative symptoms.
So a seemingly clear set of symptoms. But no! Once again, many of us experience some or varying versions of these, and then there are people who honestly don't relate to many of these and still get a BPD diagnosis because they just don't fit into a box. So this is where it leads many people with BPD to feel misunderstood, misjudged, misinformed, and as a result, mistreated.
Even for myself, it's been a very confusing diagnosis. My own experience of BPD leads me into extreme patterns of mood fluctuation, swinging between extreme highs to extreme lows of depression and anxiety. During stressful periods or mental health episodes, I can hear voices that aren't there, telling me threatening or dark conspiracies. I can lose touch with reality, feeling like I have died or no longer exist. I can become paranoid, delusional, or feel the end of the world is here. I can struggle to cope with extreme feelings of fear, sadness, or hopelessness and loneliness. All these symptoms can fall round and round again, becoming so disruptive that I've been sectioned and hospitalized several times. As you can now tell, most people with BPD often don't fit neatly into any diagnostic formula. I myself have been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, and schizoaffective disorder by various doctors and during different hospitalizations. The very nature of this diagnostic confusion leads to a very chaotic, ever-changing treatment plan and can leave a person bouncing from one department to another with no stability or support. Overall, the more you look into this illness, the more confused you become. And I understand why the health services struggle to cope with this disorder. But surely this means something needs to change. Some way of breaking things down so people are treated like people, not just throwing them away with a trash can diagnosis.
So, I know there's a lot to take in, and it can be a little bit scary and a little bit daunting, especially if you've just been diagnosed yourself, or maybe you have a loved one who has been diagnosed. But the good news is there is hope, and there are things that can help massively. I myself am now living a life that I really never thought I would be able to. I'm managing my symptoms, and I'm staying healthy and well for much longer periods of time, whilst maintaining a full-time job and a long-term relationship. So I want to put that out there, that there is hope, and I would really love to just spread more awareness about this illness and how you can help somebody going through it, or how you can better help yourself if you are experiencing it too.
As I said, I'm going to be talking a lot more about my experiences, what has helped and what hasn't. Hopefully it will lead to a little more clarity, a way to break things down into smaller, more manageable chunks. Something we could all benefit from, instead of this huge, demonizing, sweeping view many people have when they hear the letters BPD. So, again, I hope to make this a supportive and hopeful place, because if you're anything like me, we really need it. Thank you for being here. Esther.